Welcome to video number 3. It's assumed that you've already watched video number 1 and 2. If you haven't done so, please look at those videos first from start to finish so that video 3 will make more sense. Okay, the first thing that we're going to cover are lower swing tops and higher swing bottoms. Now, if you've watched the first 2 videos, by now you should know how to identify price bars that are considered confirmed swing tops and confirmed swing bottoms. And you know how that's different than a potential swing top or a potential swing bottom. Here is a daily chart of T-bonds. So let's take a couple of swing tops here. Here we have a swing top, and then we see another swing top immediately after. When we're looking at this swing top here, we want to compare the current swing top with the previous swing top. And in this case here, we see that it is lower than the previous swing top. We would then identify this as a lower swing top. It's a lower confirmed swing top. We can also look at this swing bottom and we compare that swing bottom, for example, to the most recent swing bottom, which is over here. And so you can see that this is a lower swing bottom. All right, this is a lower swing bottom when compared to this swing bottom here. Keep that in mind that you're always comparing to the most recent. Down here, we have a swing top. And if you compare it to the most recent swing top, which is here, this is a higher swing top. If we look at this bottom here, we compare it to the most recent bottom, this is a higher swing bottom. A bullish trend is one that would have higher swing bottoms, and usually consecutive higher swing bottoms. And for a bearish trend, lower swing tops and lower swing bottoms. Let's talk a little bit about common sense logic. If a market is making higher swing bottoms, would that be a market you'd want to be looking to sell into or buy into? Well, in general, there are exceptions, but in general, you would be looking to want to buy. Why? Because if the market is making higher swing bottoms, it's a market that's moving up. It's a bullish trend pattern. If the market is making lower swing tops, do you want to be a buyer or a seller in a market making lower swing tops? Well, naturally, you'd want to be a seller. Again, there are exceptions, but we don't want to get too deep into that. Generally, you want to be a seller because if it's making lower swing tops, it's a bear trend market. This is important to note because when we get into buy and sell setups, we're going to be wanting to note whether it is a higher swing top or a lower swing top or a higher swing bottom or a lower swing bottom. We're going to want to know that because that's going to play into whether it is going to be considered a buy or a sell setup. So now let's get into the particulars of a buy or sell setup. A buy setup first requires that we have an FDate for a price bar that is a potential higher swing bottom on the daily chart. Today is, and we got March 30th, 2021, and we're looking at the daily chart of the US T-bond market. But you're looking at this price bar right here, and you see that, hey, we have an FDate for this price bar. There's pretty good probability that that price bar may become a higher swing bottom. Why would you think that? Well, take a look at this. Notice that the low of this potential swing bottom is higher than the previous low. You know that we have an FDate for that price bar. That's one, FDate, potential higher swing bottom. And the third thing is that the weekly time frame chart supports that possibility of an upward movement of the daily chart because you just confirmed a weekly swing bottom on the weekly chart. This is a buy setup. It doesn't mean you start buying, but at this point here, you're only determining whether you have a buy or sell setup. Then you have to do your homework and determine whether you should trade it. Let's take a look at sell setups. Suppose we're looking at the chart and today happens to be this price bar right here, February 11th, 2021 in the T-bond market. What we notice right off the bat is we have a potential swing top price bar. You look at that price bar and you compare it to the previously confirmed swing top, which is right here. So you have yourself a potential swing top price bar and you compare it to the previous one. I have a potential lower swing top price bar. The next thing we want to know is, does this price bar have an F date associated with it? You look on the report, you see there's an F date. You say, okay, there's two things checked off. We have a potential lower swing top and we have an F date. What does the weekly chart show us? So let's take a look at the weekly chart. Okay, so we're now looking at the weekly chart and we can see that the last price bar here happens to be week ending February 12th, 2021, which is supposedly this week, for example. And we look here and we notice that the very last weekly swing in this market is a top. Perfect. If the last weekly swing, confirmed weekly swing, is a top, then that means we could be looking for sell setups. Therefore, on the daily chart, we'll go back to that. On the daily chart, because we have a potential lower swing top, because it's in an F date, and because the last weekly swing is a confirmed top on the weekly time frame, we have a sell setup. It's important that we note what buy and sell setups are used for. Most times people think of setups as a signal that if you have a buy setup, that means go long. If you have a sell setup, that means go short. That's not what it means within the FDates membership. A buy setup is basically telling you that you have a certain pattern, includes an F date, that includes what the last weekly swing happened to be, and is giving you a direction to consider if you wanted to go into that market and trade that market. But like anything else, you just don't jump in. You need to analyze and determine whether it's a good idea to go long or a good idea to go short. Let me give you an example. All right, let's take a look at this crude oil chart here. So if we look at this last price bar, clearly it is a potential lower swing top. And let's assume that there's an F date here. And if we look on the weekly chart, well, no doubt we'll notice that the last weekly swing was a top. So this qualifies as a sell setup. But should we just sell it then because it's a sell setup? Well, what would happen? Possibly, take a look at this. We're filled and we're stopped out. And then the market starts going up, up, up. In other words, the point I'm making here is that it's very possible that you can have a sell setup at the very end of a bear trend. And the inverse of that is if you have a buy setup, you have to determine, is that buy setup possibly at the end of a bullish run? So there are other tools that we can use at our disposal, and those are discussed in other videos, but the whole point is a buy setup and a sell setup does not mean just enter, long, short, whatever the case may be. It's a starting point like any other indicator. It focuses us on the fact that the market has a high probability of moving in a certain direction. It gets us into the market with the supposed trend of the market, but it is not by itself a signal to enter a trade. So that's all there is to determining whether you have a buy or sell setup. So let's summarize. For a buy setup, you need a potential higher swing bottom. It must be in an F date. And there must be a confirmed weekly swing bottom for a standard buy setup. For a standard sell setup, you must have a potential lower swing top. It must be associated with an F-date. And on the weekly chart, you have a confirmed weekly swing top. There's something called pre-confirmation buy and sell setups. And how these differ from standard buy and sell setups that we just covered is simply that you do not have that element of a confirmed weekly swing. In other words, for a buy setup, you don't have a confirmed weekly swing bottom. And for a sell setup, you don't have that confirmed weekly swing top. Instead, you have a potential weekly swing bottom on the weekly chart for a pre-confirmation buy setup. And for a pre-confirmation sell setup, you have a potential weekly swing top on the weekly chart. There is a video on that. Just look for pre-confirmation setups. Well, this concludes video number 3 on buy and sell setups. I'll see you in video 4.